All right, welcome. I'm going to go ahead and just get some things set up here for a second. We'll get started with my top 10 list here for 2018. Let me just go ahead and bring up this so I can see it here. All right. Uh, so we'll just wait for a few people to join us here before I get started. I actually just FYI, excuse me, I didn't do the regular video where I edited together just because I really don't have time. I'm studying. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. But that's kind of where I'm coming from there. But again, I just want to wait a minute or two, see if we get anybody else to join us. And let's see. I'll go ahead and get started because there's something too I just wanted to mention before I get started, and people will be able to see this when they do the when they watch it subsequently. And that is, I am probably going to be taking a break from TDG for a little while. I was supposed to take my comprehensive examinations in May or July. It turns out I'm going to be taking them in March, and for spring break, in the middle of spring break. That's just the way the scheduling worked out. So, long story short, I've got a ton of books I got to read, a ton of studying I got to do, and I just, the gaming is not a priority. I love it so much, and it's such a great way to unwind and with the stress of school. But it's kind of crunch time, and if I'm going to pass my exams, which is a pretty big deal, after I do that, it's just a matter of writing my dissertation. After I do that, then I should have some more time, and I fully intend to keep going. But this is probably going to be my last TDG video for a little while. So that's just the reality of the program I'm in and what I'm doing here. So I'm not going away permanently, so just be okay with that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I wanted to talk about a few things first. In years past, I've included new editions of games in my list. I've done, like, for instance, if you'll remember last year, my number one was Twilight Imperium 4th edition. And I've done that before, and I kind of was debating if I wanted to do that this year or not. And I kind of decided there was enough new games that I played, that I actually kind of wanted to separate new editions from from new games entirely. So I don't have a lot of new games, or pardon me, new editions on the list. I'm going to talk about some new editions, though, that did come out that I really liked, so I'll mention those briefly. But the reality is I wanted to separate those this year. Again, let me say I did not play nearly as many games this year as last year and this year with school. I just haven't had time to play as many games as I have in years past. Before I moved here to Texas, I generally played a lot more games every year, and I haven't been playing as many games. There were a lot of games that came out this year that I wanted to play, and now that I'm thinking about them, I couldn't tell you a title, but there were a lot of games that I wanted to play that I couldn't, never got to. So, maybe I'll play them eventually, and I'll let you know. But let me talk about these new editions first. I got 7 new editions that I think were decent games that were worth something. So I went ahead and organized those new editions there, just for my own peace of mind. Before I get started talking about the new editions, could somebody just let me know? Could somebody just comment and let me know if the sound's okay? I want to make sure I'm coming through okay. I've got my mic on, and so I believe it will, but I just want to make sure. Hopefully one of you will take the chance and comment. Just let me know about the sound here as soon as you get a chance. All right, but let me go ahead and talk about these new editions. I've got 7 games on here, 7 new editions 7 new edition games. I'm just going to go through these briefly. Battle of Britain, one I played about a month or so ago, was a lot of fun. World War II, RAF versus Luftwaffe over England. A very, very fun and interesting game. Hannibal versus Hamilcar, that was a lot of fun as well. I really liked... I had played the original Avalon Hill game, and in fact, I still... oh, hey, thank you. Appreciate that. Chronozerum, thank you. But Hannibal and Hamilcar, I had the original Avalon Hill. I played that years ago and enjoyed it. And the new edition is freaking awesome. It's a beautiful production, great minis, great map, great cards, and it's so much fun. The battles in that game are so much fun. I hope you would get a chance to play that game if you're at all interested in kind of light wargaming and stuff. Hannibal and Hamilcar was fantastic. Pacific Victory, which I just put up my review for earlier today. Pacific Victory is the second edition, and it is another great game. Kind of like an Axis and Allies, a little more nuanced, a little heavier. It's Pacific Theater, obviously, but a very good block war game. If you like Columbia games, if you like block war games, you like those kinds of systems, it's a very good one. It's a very well done. I really liked Pacific Victory. I included here the legendary Marvel Studios Phase 1 because I almost felt like that was like a new edition of the original in a lot of ways. It kind of played the same in a lot of ways. I think some of the cards are the same if memory serves. So I always liked Legendary a lot, and I thought Legendary Marvel Studios Phase 1 was just a great new way to play it. And I think that'll probably introduce new people to it because it's based on the movies. You got the screen caps. And while a lot of people poo-poo that, I think some people will be drawn to it. And so I think that's a good thing. And I love the game. It was fun, and I like the map that it comes with. It's fun stuff. History of the World from Z-Man Games was pretty fun. That was you kind of start out, in the ancient world, and then you build and build toward. You go through these different phases. I think it's 5 phases that you go through, and the world's empires, of course, grow and expand, but then they kind of go into retreat. It almost kind of feels like Small Wonder a little bit. But that was a fun game. I really didn't know what to expect from that game, and I really got a kick out of it. It was a lot of fun. History of the World from Z-Man. Black Orchestra did a second edition. I really like Black Orchestra from last year. Black Orchestra was a fantastic game about trying to kill Hitler, and it was really a lot of fun. It was really imaginative and different. If you know Courtier, I love Courtier, the game Courtier. We just played that. I did a live playthrough of Courtier here on the channel over Gameathon just this last weekend. Love Courtier. It's tremendous fun. And they the designer of Courtier designed Black Orchestra, and it's just a great game. It's a wonderful game of, like I said, trying to kill Hitler, but it's it's a cooperative game, so things are happening to you, and you got to kind of mitigate problems and move around Europe, and while you're collecting the various, the plot cards that you need and the items you need on the plot, and the circumstances have to be right, and there really is a sense of growing fear as the Gestapo is closing in on you. And I really enjoyed Black Orchestra quite a bit. Very, very fun game. And finally, the last new edition I will mention is, of course, Fury of Dracula 4th edition. Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm just mentioning these new editions. They're not in any particular order. I like them all the same. But I have to tell you, if Fury of Dracula were on the list, it would probably be number 1, just because everybody knows Fury of Dracula is consistently my top 10 games of all time. I love the game, and the new edition is just fantastic. It's like a deluxe edition from what the Fantasy Flight did. There were no significant rules changes, so I didn't feel like I really feel good about putting it in the list this year, the top 10 list this year that I'll get to in a minute. Like with Twilight Imperium last year had some pretty significant rules changes, I felt like. I mean, it's still very accessible to people who played the 3rd edition of Twilight Imperium, but Twilight Imperium 4, it changed tech, it changed trade, it did change a lot. And Fury of Dracula, really nothing changed mechanically. It's pretty much cosmetically. I think there is some streamlining a little bit in the rules, but I think it's just like the rules are written differently. I don't think it's any great mechanical changes. So I didn't feel good about including that on this list this year, but just know that is a fantastic game. If you haven't played Fury of Dracula, you need to pick it up. It's freaking awesome. All right, so before I get into the top 10, now I just want to do some honorable mentions. So I've got a few games here that I played this year that I really enjoyed that just for one reason or another didn't make the list. Combat Infantry from Columbia Games. Combat Infantry was a great World War II game, another block war game like Pacific Victory. Pacific Victory is a better game out of the two, but I liked Combat Infantry, Americans versus Germans 44, and it very, very good, very quick-moving game. Istanbul the Dice Game. Istanbul the Dice Game was a lot of fun. Istanbul the Dice Game was just one of these like little kind of surprising games that I actually liked. But you'd take the turn rolling dice to get certain numbers, and that would allow, of course, allow you to do different actions and get different components and get different things that you'd need to get points. Kind of a victory point salad. A lot of different ways you get points. It's kind of Euro-y, but of course there's dice rolling. So there's a lot of luck, but it was a fun game. It was just kind of a fun, engaging game. It was kind of a race, and first time I played it, I won it, so that always makes me feel good. There was that Istanbul the Dice Game. Okay, this next one's going to be a little controversial because I really liked the game. I really had fun with the game, and that's fundamentally what I'm talking about when I do my top 10 lists like this, and that is which games did I have the most fun with. At the end of the day, that's what matters to me, is what's the most fun I've had. And I really had fun with Lord of the Rings Quest to Mount Doom. This is a game where you've got, Gimli and Aragorn and Sam and Frodo and Legolas and all these fellowship fellows, and yet they're fighting against each other. They're playing tricks on each other. They're screwing each other over. So it's not really thematic, but it was fun. My friends and I just laughed with this game, and we're cursing at each other with this game. Very simple. It's roll and move. Who knew? But it was a fun game. For what it was, I actually had a lot of fun with it. Check out my review if you doubt me. But it's a fun game. DC Rivals, Green Lantern versus Sinestro was another honorable mention. That was a really fun game. If you've not played the Rival system, they did the Batman versus Joker one, that came out I think in 14, and I think I liked that one a little better just because I like Batman, I guess, better. But it was fun, a lot of fun. And this new one is really a lot of fun as well. The Confrontations, the Confrontations box set that came out about a year ago, where it's a 2v2 game. That one is amazing. That's freaking awesome. But for a one-on-one game, the Green Lantern versus Sinestro was a whole lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. Really liked that one a lot. A great two-player deck building game. And then finally, another good honorable mention was Carthage. And Carthage was good. Carthage is, I can't remember the name of the company that put it out, but it's your gladiators. It's a deck building game, but your gladiators. And so like how you play your cards indicate what you can do in the arena. You can move, you can attack, you can do other actions and get other benefits. So I really enjoy deck building games that are also board games, and the deck building kind of influences the board games. Games like Clank or Trains or what have you. And this one is fun because it's a kind of a combat game, and I had a lot of fun with Carthage as well. Okay, so those are my honorable mentions, new additions, honorable mentions out of the way. Let's get down right now to my top 10 games of 2018. So, number 10. This is a game I really hadn't heard anything about until right about the time it came out, and they sent me a copy. It's from Plaid Hat Games, and this is Starship Samurai. Starship Samurai is a really cool game because you got really cool minis. They're like Voltron, the Japanese, big robots that are fighting each other. But you've also got spaceships and stuff like that. But it's actually kind of a Euro game, in that you are each part of these different clans, and you're moving up and down on these tracks. And as you're moving up, somebody else is moving down, and you're trying to win the battles. So you place your guys in certain areas. But there's also kind of a card. You play cards either for combat to boost your combat power, or to play dirty tricks on the other guy. And it was just a very fun and engaging game. And it's one of those, wasn't on my radar, but I actually really enjoyed it. This is actually my number 10. I was talking about other things. So Xanthusks, we're on number 10. So that's my number 10, Starship Samurai from Plaid Hat Games. Okay, number 9. Number 9 is a game that, another deck building game. And it's one that my friend Chris had kind of recommended it to me because he had got the game up through the Kickstarter, and then when it came out for retail, I got a copy. I guess they did a second Kickstarter, and I got it that way. I'm not sure exactly how they marketed this, but it's from AEG. It is Thunderstone Quest. Now, if ever you played a Thunderstone game, they're fun. I played Thunderstone Advanced Numenera like 4 or 5 years ago, like not long after it came out, and I really enjoyed it, but I just never got to the table. You know, there were other games I was always playing, but I really enjoyed it. It was one of those things I kept thinking, I got to play again, I got to play again. I just never got around to it. And so Thunderstone Quest, when it comes out, I really like the variety that it gives you for a deck building game. I like again, it almost felt like it was a board game with deck building in it, and you almost get a kind of a dungeon crawl adventure with deck building in it. I mean, fundamentally it's a deck builder, but it almost still feels like you're playing on the board there. And of course, the box is ginormous. It's absolutely huge. And I'll answer that question in a minute, Nicholas. That's a good question. I'll answer that in a minute. But Thunderstone Quest, I really enjoyed. Really got a kick out of. So Thunderstone Quest from AEG, that is my number 9. My number 8 is a game that came out again a few months ago, maybe over the summer. And it's a game that I'd heard a little bit about before it came out. It was one I was looking forward to. And that game was from GMT, from Mark Herman, the designer Mark Herman. It was Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter is a great 2-player game, card game, and it's very reminiscent of, it's like a Twilight Struggle, but a mini Twilight Struggle. I guess it's maybe closer to 13 days. But it's pretty quick moving, and it's, you've got the cards that you're playing out of your hand, and then you have to essentially play a card in reserve every round, and then in the last round, those cards you reserved are your hand. So you're kind of setting yourself up for the end game throughout the game. But it's Civil War history, and it's generally very good. And Mark Herman, he designed Churchill, which I liked a few years ago. A year or so ago, he did Pericles, which I was less than thrilled with. And he had said at the time, well, if that's much for you, which I said is a little too complicated, you may like Fort Sumter when it comes out. So Fort Sumter comes out, and I really enjoyed Fort Sumter. I thought it was a lot of fun, very well done. A great 2-player game, and that is from GMT. Number 7. This is one that's probably a big hit with a lot of people, and they're probably upset that I'm ranking it so low. But my 7, I'll get through the list and then I'll answer some of these questions. I'm not going to have time to answer a lot of questions, but I'll answer a few of them. But my number 7 is Rising Sun from CMON. Rising Sun, of course, is a great, again, feudal Japanese-themed dudes on a map game. You have some of the most amazing minis that were designed for that game, and I really got a kick out of it. I really enjoyed it. So I like that one. There's a diplomacy aspect. You got to make alliances at certain times, but again, you're trying to control. It's area control. You're trying to control certain regions, and ultimately, there's only going to be one winner. So that kind of affects the alliance building dynamic. But it's a beautiful game to look at, fun game to play. It's kind of a successor, it's a spiritual successor in a way to Blood Rage. I must confess, I do like Blood Rage a little bit more, but I do like Rising Sun quite a bit. That is my number 7 from CMON. Number 6 is a game, another kind of a smaller game that I really enjoyed, that, again, I didn't see coming. And I actually had the company reach out to me and ask me if I'd be willing to review this. And I already mentioned another game I reviewed from this company about the same time. But this is Space Marines Labyrinth of the Necrons from Games Workshop. This is a Space Marine board game. It's not the mini game, although you do have little minis that you do have to assemble. It's not quite as labor-intensive as the actual miniatures game. But it's very, very interesting, and it's a very fun game. I've only played it solo. I think I played it 3 or 4 times, but I've only played it solo. And it's one I keep thinking at some point I'd like to stream. I don't know when I'm going to have the time to do that, but it's just a good, solid. Hi Quebec. It's just a good, solid. dungeon crawl, I guess is dungeon crawler is the best way to say it. But it's smart and it's not overly complex. It's simple. You can play it in about an hour, and it's got that mechanic in it. We saw it in Doom from Fantasy Flight, where you never know who's going next. You never know which one of your Marines is going next, or if the bad guy's going next because you draw a card. Oh, it's this guy's turn. Oh, it's this guy's turn. Oh, it's their turn. And I like that. To me, that really heightens the tension when you don't know who's going next. It's like over the Gameathon weekend, I live streamed 1775 Rebellion, and that's got the same mechanic where you don't know who's going next, and there's so much tension with that system. I really like that. Maybe one day I'll design a board game with that mechanic. All right, so that's number 6. That's Space Marines Labyrinth of the Necrons from Games Workshop. Okay, number 5. This is a game that, again, is a historical war game that I had kind of... They were doing the Kickstarter for it, and I had kind of paid attention to the Kickstarter because I played an earlier game and I owned an earlier game that this was kind of loosely based on, but then they significantly changed it. This is a Glenn Drover game, Napoleon, Victory and Glory, Napoleon from Forbidden Games. Now this game, Napoleon Victory and Glory, is it's a game that is not. I was expecting kind of a dudes on the map war game because Napoleon in Europe, which this is loosely based on, was a dudes on the map game. But this game, excuse me, but this game is it's almost more of, again, a Twilight Struggle kind of game because you don't really have dudes on a map. You don't have minis. You have little kind of chits that represent the armies and their strengths. And you're kind of playing those back and forth at various times. But you're competing for kind of political influence, even as you're competing for military dominance, and you're trying to kind of build your economy as you're trying to build your military power, you're trying to build your leadership ratings, and the game kind of plays on almost like a historical curve of the way the Napoleonic Wars went. So Napoleon's really powerful at the beginning, but then he kind of begins to decline toward the end. So it's kind of like a game of Axis and Allies. If you're Napoleon, you have to do as much as you can in the early game so you can kind of withstand and hold on to your gains by the end. If you are a very timid Napoleon, you're not going to do very well in the game. It plays over like 3 historical epochs, and it's all about events. You're playing events constantly, and so that is just a lot of fun. Okay, so that is Napoleon Victory and Glory from Forbidden Games. My number 4 game here is the... now this is a game that I guess is not in wide release yet. I played a preview copy back in May, and I've got the production copy about a month ago that I've been playing, and I think some Kickstarter backers have got it, so I don't know, but I'm going to include it on my list because for me it was a 2018 game, and that is Tudor from Academy Games. Tudor from Academy Games is, again, I've said this, it may be my favorite Euro game. I've still got to consider it. But Tudor is just fantastic. Tudor is a game, you've got the player boards that are hands, and you've got different rings, and you put them on the different fingers, and how you put them on the fingers determines kind of what actions you can take. But what I like about this game, what makes this game very, very fun for me, is the meanness. It's the take that. It's the you can really screw over someone's strategy. You can really screw over someone's plans. It's very easy to do. You're just trying, you are changing the composition of the board, of the throne room as you move through it. But even as you change it, that's going to affect other players. And so what that does, of course, is it makes you pay attention when it's not your turn. And so games that can make people do that, make people pay attention when it's not their turn, to me are very good because they suck you in and they keep you interested throughout. So I really, really enjoyed Tudor. That is my number 4 from Academy Games. My number 3, again, this is another controversial game. It came out and people said, don't screw with it. It's kind of a historical game, but it's not a historical game. There was also a question of, is this a new edition or not? And I said, no, they changed enough that it's not just a new edition. But again, I really loved it. This is from Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Avalon Hill, Axis and Allies and Zombies. Axis and Allies and Zombies was just tremendously fun. It was, because on one hand, it's like you're playing those old games of Axis and Allies with your buddies, all night in high school. It evoked great memories of that. But at the same time, now it's got a little more spice. It's got a little more sugar. It's got something new and interesting. And it makes some of these tough choices really interesting as well. Like when you're taking casualties in combat and regular Axis and allies, you're always taking infantry as your. That's what infantry does. It's your fodder. But here, when you take infantry losses, you got to know, okay, but then that's a zombie that I still got to deal with later. So you're very kind of judicious about, I can lose the infantry and then it's a zombie, or I can lose a tank and I won't have the zombie, but then I'm not going to have the hitting power I need for the rest of the battle. So it's a very interesting system with very good choices. I mean, it's not perfect. There's a few little things I would have changed. Like technology, I would have made that a little different how you get it. But generally speaking, I really had a lot of fun with this game. And I think people that play it will as well. So that's my number 2 from Avalon Hill, Hasbro Wizards of the Coast. That's Axis and Allies and Zombies. Okay, number 2. Again, this is another thing I was saying, is this a new edition or is it a new game? And of course, it's a new game. There's enough changes there that make it a new game. And it's so much fun. I've played this game 3 or 4 times now. I played it with other people. I played it solo. I did a live stream of this game. Really, really love it. And that is Legendary Encounters, The X-Files. I liked the X-Files show when it was on TV. I wasn't in love with it. I didn't see every episode. I kind of got into it because my friends got into it. So I got into it about halfway through it. And I enjoyed it. I had fun with it, but I didn't love it. But I really like the game. I think, the aesthetic of the game is not great. I think there are better looking games. But I think it's so smart the way they take the scanning that you would have from the Alien game and the Predator game and the Firefly game, where you scan that top row, and they add that to the bottom row where your cards that you're buying or recruiting are coming at. You got to scan those too, because you have enemies, infiltrators who have come into the bureau, and you got to take them out as well. Just a lot of fun. If you like Legendary, it's just a fun and interesting new way to play Legendary. Really got a kick out of that. Really got a kick out of that one. Okay, so let's see. That was my number 2. That's from Upper Deck, of course. Legendary Encounters, X-Files, number 2. My number 1 game. So this is a game that really surprised me how much I liked it, because as I have said many, many times on the old Discriminating Gamer show here, I love theme. I love games with strong theme, and that's one of the reasons why I love Twilight Imperium so much. Is to me that game just drips theme. Battlestar Galactica I love because the IP. I've never seen a game capture its IP as well. Star Wars Rebellion, same thing. I love thematic games, and this next game, my number 1 game of 2018, is an abstract game. And it blew me away that I'd like an abstract game as much as I did, but it was so much fun. I felt like it was so innovative in ways, and I just got a kick out of it. And that is from AEG War Chest. War Chest is my number 1 game of 2018. It's the game where it's kind of got a chess-like feel to it, a chess-like quality, and you have different units. You have archers and cavalry and knights and what have you, and pikemen, and what you do though is they're represented by these coins, and these coins are kind of currency you spend, but they're also the units you use, and you will put them into a bag, you mix up the bag, and you pull them out to see what you're going to use, and you like spend them to activate them on the board. But the more you put, so the more of these coins you put out, the fewer chances you actually have to activate them and use them, which is just phenomenal. And I've only played the 4-player version, and I hear that's the best version to play. So I haven't played the 2-player. I don't know how the 2-player plays, but I think at some point I want to play it a 2-player. But it's a great game. It is just absolutely fantastic, and I loved it very much. So for those of you who are just tuning in, let me reiterate something I said at the beginning. Well, that's my list, first of all. So love it, don't love it, whatever. That's the way I feel. But I want to reiterate something I said now that I got more of you here. I'm going to be probably taking a break from TDG for a couple of months. I'm doing my comprehensive examinations over spring break, middle of March, and I just got so much to read and so much to do. This is probably going to be my last video for a while. Maybe I can sneak one in, maybe before then, but generally this is probably going to be me going on hiatus for a little while, just because I can't. I got too much to do. So. Before we end here, let me just answer some of these questions that I see here. What was my biggest gaming disappointment of 2018 from Nicholas? That's easy. It was Hitler's Reich. Hitler's Reich from GMT Games. looked like it was going to be an awesome game. It was a game about a war game about World War II in Europe, the entirety of the war in Europe, that was supposedly going to play in about 2 hours, and it was card driven, and it sounded awesome. This was a game I was really stoked for, and I got the game, and I read through the rules, and the rules just didn't make sense. I mean, I couldn't visualize how the game worked, and sometimes with some games that's the case. I can't get a sense of that from reading the rules, but then I actually get the game to the table, and I go, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense, and this makes sense, and it makes sense. First time I got this to the table, it is Hitler's War, yeah. First time I got this to the table, my friend and I, Chris, who both played tons of games, we couldn't figure it out. We could not figure this thing out. We were out about nearly 3 hours. We're sitting there trying to figure it out, and we couldn't. Well, then a while later, we decided we'd give it another go. I reread the rules as much as I could, and we came back, and again, we sat there for nearly 3 hours scratching our heads. Hands down, the worst rule book I maybe have ever read. Certainly the worst I've read in years. And then finally, eventually, I had another friend who plays a lot of war games. He said, I really want to try it. So he kind of really cracked the rules and studied the rules. And we sat down and we played it. And the gameplay itself was good. It had some good stuff in it. But it just was, there were so many little rules and exceptions and special rules to try to make it more historical, try to make it more thematic. But it killed the pace of the game. It killed what was fun about the game, and so I just didn't like it, not with the rule book. And now I will say this: they are doing another rules set, second edition of the rules. So I'm hanging on to my copy because I want to read the second edition of the rules. If they can make that better and somehow make the game work, I'll try it, and I'll get back to you and let you know what I think. But as it is right now, it's not very good. So I hope that answers your question, Nikolai. And thank you, Nikolai. I appreciate that. It was very kind of you. So let's see what the other question here. What is the best historical war game to buy? Well, what is the best historical war game to buy? I don't know. There's so many good ones. It depends, I guess, on what. The first thing I would ask you is, what is your what era are you looking at? Are you looking at World War II? Are you looking at Napoleonics? Are you looking at Civil War? I mean, there's a lot of really good ones, and I'd hesitate to say this is the best historical war game. I would probably recommend, if you put a gun to my head and said, what's the best historical war game? I got it. And again, the other big question is, do you want a light war game or do you want a complex war game? Because I don't go too complex. I go from like light to like medium, brushing up against heavy. World War II. Okay. Yeah, I've never played Unconditional Surrender, so I couldn't answer Unconditional Surrender. I've heard that's a good one, but I haven't played it. I would probably recommend Triumph and Tragedy. I think Triumph and Tragedy was a really good one. That's European theater. It's GMT Games. And it's really good. It starts like in 36, so you got these like diplomatic wars that you're playing with cards before you get to the like actual battles. And in the one we played, because I think I only played it once. It's a pretty big game. I only played it once, but I really liked it. I think I played it once. Maybe I played it again. It's been a while, but I know in that first game we played anyway, the Western Allies, Britain and the United States, actually ended up going to war with Russia, and Germany remained neutral for a long time. So it was a fun game. I really liked that. But that's probably my favorite World War II. But I'll tell you right now, if you're looking for a really good light war game, 1775 Rebellion may be the best. I mean, it's very light and it's accessible. When I say light, I mean it's accessible. People who are not war gamers will play it. They'll love it. Very good game. And then, of course, Napoleon, 4th edition from Columbia Games, is really a lot of fun. It's about Battle of Waterloo. Really good. Haven't played Paths of Fire. I know Paths of Glory. I haven't played Paths of Fire. Oh, it was a good World War I game was Fields of Despair came out 17. Fields of Despair was freaking awesome. I really liked Fields of Despair a lot. A good block war game. GMT games, really good. Conflict of Heroes is good. I've only played one Conflict of Heroes game, and that was Guadalcanal. And I like Guadalcanal, but I've heard there are others that are better. But, okay. What was that other question? Oh, you're interested in my World War II books? You know what? That's... Okay, so that's some of my books. I've got more over here. I've got some down on the floor here. I'm in a PhD program. With regards to a part of the war you're interested in, you know, because that matters too. Because there's a lot of good books on the war. Let me tell you right now, probably the best kind of overarching book of the, that I've ever read was. Okay, well, okay, I'll tell you that. But the best overarching book that I've ever read of World War II is just came out a little over a year ago. It's Victor Davis Hanson's The Second World Wars, plural. How a global struggle was fought and won. Victor Davis Hanson's a phenomenal historian, and that book is just will blow you away. You'll get something out of it every page. Pacific, there's some good stuff. At Dawn We Slept. Actually, I was just reading Miracle at Midway too by Prang. Those are really good. And I read here a little while ago. It just came out. I wrote a review in the Deseret News for Rampage by James Scott, which was about the MacArthur coming back and retaking the Philippines and the Japanese atrocities there. It's a hard book to read, but it's really good. James Scott also wrote a great book on Target Tokyo about the Doolittle raid. And the paperback edition's got my name in there for my review, but it's but that's a good book. Target Tokyo is a really, really good book. Yeah, I had been playing a lot of Napoleon Total War on PC. I used to play Rome Total War. I really like that, and then I've been playing Napoleon Total War, which I really think is great. And I wish they'd do more in that system, but I guess they won't. I mean, it's been what 10 years since Napoleon Total War came out. Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Are there any other quick questions? I actually do have to run, so I've got to get back to studying. So if everybody's got another quick question or two, I'll hurry and answer those. Otherwise, we'll call it a night. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything pop up. So just let me go ahead and say thanks a lot for tuning in. Like I say, I'm probably going to be on a break here for a few months.